Generally, when you first start a diet, there's a little bit of hunger that comes with it. When you lower how much food you're eating, your body does take a couple days to adjust to that. But after it adjusts, it's completely easy. But what's nice is on your low carb days, people think, well, if I'm not going to be able to eat carbs, I'm going to be hungry all the time, which is almost the complete opposite. Because when you're not eating carbs, like we've talked about, you are going to be increasing your fat intake. And fat is the most satiating of the 3 macronutrients.
Welcome to the V-Shred Better Body, Better Life podcast, where we help you live your best life while working on your health and fitness goals. We're here to make your journey fun and inspiring.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of the V-Shred Better Body, Better Life podcast. I'm your host today, Vince, co-founder of V-Shred, and I'm super excited to have you guys here. Today, we are going to be going over carb cycling. We are going to be talking about a bunch of different stuff related to carb cycling, how it works, why you should be possibly trying out carb cycling, why you should be eating more carbs, the benefit to eating more carbs, and just a bunch of other good stuff related to your nutrition, because we've been getting a lot of questions about carb cycling specifically. And so if you are in a plateau, or you're following a diet where you can't have any carbs and you're having crazy cravings and you enjoy eating carbs and want to follow a diet where you can eat carbs, then this episode is for you. So first, let's start off by talking about what carb cycling is, right? And how it works. Because carb cycling can be a pretty confusing topic for people when they're first starting out with their diet. Because first off, you got to understand that your body has 2 fuel sources, right? This is where you get your energy, right? The first one's going to be carbs. Second one is going to be fats. And so that's why carbs and fats are part of a proper balanced diet. You have to be eating both of them. What carb cycling is where you are basically tricking your body into burning fat as much as possible without slowing down your metabolism in the process. Because what happens is when people follow these low carb or no carb diets, they do trick their body into burning fat temporarily, but then what happens is that affects their hormones and their metabolism negatively, and it slows it down, and those diets aren't sustainable in the first place, and so they may lose a couple pounds in that first week or two, but then what ultimately ends up happening is their metabolism has been slowing down that whole time until they've hit a plateau. They quit the diet because they're no longer getting results anymore, and it's not sustainable, and they gain all their weight back. But that beginning part, there's something to be said about that. Because when you do first cut carbs and you do lose weight for a little bit, there's a way to capitalize on that. And that's what carb cycling does. Carb cycling basically takes you through these singular days, or maybe 2 days tops, where you do follow a low carb diet. But what's nice is in turn, you actually have high fats. So you're still eating plenty of food. Yes, you're in a caloric deficit. You have to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight, but you're still eating plenty of foods. You're just fluctuating your intake of carbs and fats. And what happens is while you're cutting these carbs for this day or two and increasing your intake of fats, you are kicking your body into this fat burning mode because now it's burning fat as its primary fuel source instead of carbs. But instead of following that for too long to where you actually slow your metabolism down, you hurt your hormones, that's when you kick yourself back into a high carb day and in turn lower your fats. And this allows your metabolism to get this temporary uptick where now you're going back to the metabolism that you had prior, or even a faster metabolism because of this uptick in your carb intake. And you'll have more energy and you'll feel better, just like mood wise. Your mental game, you'll feel a lot stronger. But then instead of following that high carb day for too long, because you obviously don't want to go every single day where you're having high carbs, that's just going to result in what's known as fat spillover. Then you go back into a low carb day. And so basically, in layman's terms, what you're doing is you're going low carb day to kick your body into a fat burning state. And then before your metabolism has time to adjust, you go into a high carb day to keep your metabolism revved up. And then right after that high carb day, you go back into a low carb day. And now you have a revved up metabolism and you're kicking your body back into a fat burning state. So it's a beautiful marriage of burning fat, kicking up your metabolism, burning fat, speeding up your metabolism. You just go through that over and over and over again. And what's nice is it allows you to eat a bunch of carbs throughout the week. No, you don't get to have carbs every single day, and you don't get to have as much as you want. You do still need to maintain a caloric deficit, but you are allowed to get like 50% of your carbs from, or 50% of your calories from carbs on those high carb days. And generally, I also like to build this schedule around your training, because one thing that you will find is that when you are following a high carb diet or a high carb day, you're going to have a lot more energy than a day where you have low carb. And so on my high carb days or on your high carb days, I generally recommend leaving those for like leg days, or I like to deadlift on my back days. So back day, so these more intense workout days. And then for my low carb days, I generally save those for my rest days. So there's a lot of benefits to carb cycling, which is why we recommend carb cycling in pretty much all of our programs. And we have a lot of clients that come to us and say that they want a carb cycling diet because they heard about that from us, but have never tried it. And like I said, first week might be a little difficult, but after you get the hang of it, it becomes super easy to follow. The next question that then arises is, why do we recommend this to so many people? Because there's obviously a ton of diets out there, right? And I'm not here to knock any specific diet. Do I think some are more sustainable than others? Yes. Do I think that carb cycling has some really nice benefits to it? Yes. What are those benefits? Well, the first one, I believe, is that you don't feel the deprivation that you feel when you're following some super strict or restrictive diet, right? Because if you start a diet and you want to lose weight, and I watched my mom do this all the time when I was growing up. She would restrict all these different foods because she thought that those weren't foods that she was allowed to have when she was following a diet. And what ended up happening was she did that for a couple weeks at a time and then just completely fell off the wagon because those cravings built up. Her appetite got a bit larger and larger because she wasn't eating as much as she was supposed to be eating, and she wasn't eating the right foods. She wasn't eating the right healthy foods, but she also was cutting out all the foods that she actually enjoyed eating. So she wasn't getting enough food, and she also wasn't getting that mental break of eating the foods that she enjoys eating. So she was cutting out everything that she liked, and that only lasts so long because your willpower only holds up for so long. And so one thing I like about carb cycling is it does allow you to eat the foods that you like eating. If you do like eating pizza, or like I'm a big pasta guy. I love pasta. If I wasn't allowed to eat pasta, I'd probably be pretty annoyed after a couple weeks of not being able to eat pasta, but really wishing I had some pasta. And so it allows you to eat these foods that normally you don't think you're allowed to eat in other diets, which makes it that much easier to stick to mentally, because you know maybe you can't have it that day, but maybe you get to have it on your high carb day, which is only 2 days away. And so it makes it a lot easier for you to stick to it in the moment rather than telling yourself, I have this craving for this food right now that I'm never allowed to eat again. There's a big difference in your mental state where you're never allowed to have something again, or you can't have it for 48 hours. It's a lot easier to stick to it when you're allowed to have it in 2 days versus never, ever again. So that's one of the main benefits to it. And then the other thing is, I kind of mentioned this when I was talking about how carb cycling works, is it keeps your metabolism guessing in a way where you never allow your body to completely adapt to what it is that you're doing. Because your body, you have to understand, is a master of adaptation. Whatever stress you put it under, your body is constantly working overtime to become better at whatever stress you put it under. So if you go to the gym and you work out and you break down muscle fibers, your body then repairs and grows stronger. It responds to that stress. If you cut your skin, your body then sends blood cells to that area, it scabs over and it heals itself and it scars over, right? Your body is constantly working to adapt to whatever stress you put it under. It's the same thing with your diet. When you cut your calories, your metabolism is naturally going to slow down a little bit because of this lower intake of energy that you're consuming. But when you cut your calories way too low, now your metabolism is basically crashing. And if you do that for too long, you're going to have a slower metabolism. You're going to have messed up your hormones. Or on the flip side, if you eat too many calories all the time, you're going to gain a bunch of weight. And so you may get a temporary boost in your metabolism when you do eat more calories one day. But then if you do that for 7 days in a row, you're going to gain a couple pounds, right? So what carb cycling does is it keeps your metabolism kind of guessing with what's coming next. It doesn't allow it to completely adjust to whatever that's happening because you're constantly changing it. You're going from this low carb day where your metabolism is going, oh, we should slow down because we're not getting enough carbs, we're not getting enough fuel. And so it starts burning fat because you're low on carbs. But then instead of doing that for too long and allowing your metabolism to adjust, you then go into high carbs. And now your body goes, oh, wait, we're getting all this energy, we're getting all this fuel we can actually burn calories. So let's crank our metabolism up because of all this fuel that we're getting. But then instead of doing that for too long, you go back into a low carb day. And so you're constantly keeping your body guessing with what's coming next. And again, it allows you to have variety with what you're eating, because on those low carb days, yeah, you're not going to be eating a bunch of carbs, but you're going to be increasing your fat intake, which means you can eat all of those fatty foods that maybe you normally try to stay away from because they don't exactly fit in your what your idea of healthy diet foods are, like bacon or whole eggs. Something as simple as whole eggs. People, how many times have you guys heard that you can only have like egg whites for breakfast? That's not necessarily true, especially on a low carb day where you're trying to get those healthy fats. So steaks, whole eggs, like salmon, avocado, bacon. Bacon's a great one. I mean, there's a ton of different healthy, fatty foods that you can have that are going to replace those carbs and also help kick your body into a fat burning state. So it's super beneficial. But then the next day, when you do have a high carb day, yeah, you're going to be lowering your fat intake because, again, you want to stay in that caloric deficit. So as your carbs go up, your fats go down. As your fats go up, your carbs go down, right? But on those high carb days, now you are eating carbs, right? And yes, generally it is better to have healthier sources of carbs. I think you would be surprised at how much food you actually get to eat when you do get your carbs from healthy sources, whole foods and stuff like that, instead of just eating like donuts and stuff. Now, I'm not saying you can't sit there and have donuts and pizza and stuff like that, but you don't want that to take up 100% of your carbs, right? So there's a lot of benefits to it, but the main thing is we recommend this to people because it's just simply easier to stick to. This is a more sustainable diet than something like keto. I'm not knocking the benefits that keto can provide. I am knocking how easy it is to stick to. It's not realistic for most people's lifestyles. Carb cycling, I feel, is completely realistic for most people. It just takes a couple days to get used to it. Now, with that being said, the next question that arises is what carbs should you be eating, right? Because there's a ton of different carbs. And maybe you've seen videos of me where I'm eating pizza and donuts and burgers and all these foods that you don't think you're supposed to eat, right? But fact of the matter is, I'm not eating those all the time. Yes, I do eat those foods, and I eat them probably every weekend. But the other 80% of the time, I am being more aware of the carbs that I am intaking because, yes, I do have lots of carbs. I'm not having donuts as all of those carbs. And so you have to understand the difference between a good carb and a bad carb. A donut would be considered a bad carb because a good carb would be something that is more of a complex carb. This is something that is going to digest slower. It's going to give you more sustained energy. It's going to have less of an insulin response in your body. And so basically, these are going to be foods like whole grains. These are going to be foods like legumes, beans, like brown rice, and then obviously like your starchy carbs, which are going to be like your vegetables, your fruits, stuff like that. Those are going to be more complex carbs. So if you can stick to those carbs 80% of the time, you are going to find that you have so much more sustained energy and you're going to be able to eat a ton of them. Now, on the flip side, there are your simple carbs. These are going to be your bad carbs. These are going to be carbs that digest a lot faster. They create more of an insulin response. And so you're going to get more energy immediately, but then you might have a crash later. Those are going to be typically your sugary carbs. So your donuts, your pizzas, your non-whole grain pastas or breads or rices, right? And again, I'm not saying you can't have those, but I am saying that you should aim for the complex carbs 80% of the time while keeping those simple carbs maybe 20% of the time. And that's exactly how I work it throughout my week. Monday through Friday, I'm sticking to mostly complex carbs. And we can get into meal timing in a future episode where we're talking about like what carbs are better to have at specific times of the days. I'm not going to dive into that today because that's a whole other thing to go into. That's another rabbit hole. But there are different carbs that you can have at different times of the day. But generally, I'm trying to keep my carbs complex Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, I'm allowing myself to be human. I'm allowing myself to have the foods that I enjoy having because that allows me to stick to my diet better the next week, right? And that's why people love carb cycling, because it does allow them to have the foods that they're not generally allowed to have when they're following a diet. And one common question that we get with carb cycling is people wondering if they're going to be hungry all the time. And I'll be honest with you guys. Generally, when you first start a diet, there's a little bit of hunger that comes with it, right? There's no escaping that. I don't care what diet you follow. When you lower how much food you're eating, your body does take a couple days to adjust to that. But after it adjusts, it's completely easy. But what's nice is on your low carb days, people think, well, if I'm not going to be able to eat carbs, I'm going to be hungry all the time, which is almost the complete opposite. Because when you're not eating carbs, like we've talked about, you are going to be increasing your fat intake, and fat is the most satiating of the 3 macronutrients. And so macros are another conversation that we can have on another episode, so make sure you guys are staying here. But you have your carbs, your fats, and your proteins. Of those 3, fats are going to be the most satiating, meaning they will make you feel the most full. So on your low carb days, when you're having a bunch of fats, you're actually probably going to feel more full than the days that you're having a bunch of carbs. So that's carb cycling in a nutshell, right? Hopefully that helps you understand more about what it is, how it works, maybe why or why not you're going to do it moving forward. But remember, that's just one tool in the arsenal of things that you can do to lose weight or burn fat or get in shape. And this is just one of the many topics that we are going to be covering on the V-Shred Better Body, Better Life podcast. We're going to be going into all areas of health and wellness and fitness and mindset. We're going to have a bunch of different experts on here. We're going to have a ton of our coaches on here talking about clients, talking about common practice, talking about myths, debunking myths, helping you guys with your relationship with food, helping to keep you guys motivated, helping to keep you guys just on track. So make sure you guys are coming back and checking out all the episodes because we are super excited about this. But if you guys are looking for a coach to help you along the way, we do have a Accelerator Plus program where we can match you up with an elite coach who can basically work one-on-one with you, take care of everything for you. So if you found this carb cycling episode a little confusing and you want someone to kind of take all that confusion away from you and just give you the blueprint to getting in the best shape of your life, click the link below. Check out the Accelerator Plus program. And also, we guarantee you results, or we give you your money back. So that's all for this one, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you or talk to you in the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of V-Shred's Better Body, Better Life podcast. Whether you're doing one of our programs, taking our supplements, or just doing things on your own, tune in every week for exclusive content with Vince, V-Shred trainers, and special guests as they share valuable tips around motivation, workouts, food, and living a healthier lifestyle. See you next time.